Before this, I was a green energy entrepreneur trying to sell solar panels because I knew it was a good idea, but I didn't have any experience in that field, so it failed horribly. But now in education, I have a master's in education. I've been teaching for 10 years, so I literally have been working in education primarily since I was in second year of college, of uni, as you would say. Because I think it's so important that math and everything is not taught in a vacuum. Because we don't live in a vacuum, but we're taught in a vacuum. John did this and had this many apples. Who's John? And who cares about these apples, It's really about trying to tailor your lessons to what that student is interested in so that the student can actually realize their own gifts and actually feel powered in them. And then when they feel powered in one gift and more confident in one area, they actually feel more confident to try other things. I strongly believe that education is the most powerful way to enact change, positive change in the world.
When was the green energy stuff?
Around the same time I got married, a couple of years later, which is not a good time to start a business when you're about to get married. I learned that.
Welcome to the Qualified Tutor podcast. I'm your host, Ludo Miller, and I'll be interviewing tutors and thought leaders from across the tutoring landscape to inspire, inform, and motivate you to become the best tutor you can be. The Qualified Tutor community is a safe and supportive space for tutors who love to learn and grow. We offer training, resources, ideas, and a chance to connect with like-minded tutors. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join our Qualified Tutor community at www.qualifiedtutorcommunity.org or find it in the show notes.
Welcome to the next episode of the Qualified Tutor podcast, and welcome to Perry Clemons, a tutor and games creator based in Manhattan, who spent many years as a primary level maths and English educator in the US. Perry also has an MA in applied linguistics and is currently working on an MS in childhood education. More recently, Perry has turned his attentions to bridging the gap between kind of the most up-to-date strategies in maths teaching and learning and the parents of today's children who weren't taught in this same way. Now, more importantly for this podcast and what we're going to be chatting about today, in the past year, Perry has put his mind to the task of creating a set of maths-based games under the banner of Mathic Games, and we're going to be hearing a little bit more about that. And these games have been designed to address this gap in understanding that I've just mentioned, and to allow students to access maths questions and problems through gamification. I also wanted to say that for those of our listeners who are already members of the Qualified Tutor community, you'll be familiar with the sharing of subject-specific resources. So for our maths tutors, get ready to add another string to your bow. But welcome, Perry. Thank you so much for joining us.
That's a pleasure.
So we were talking just earlier, and you mentioned that you wanted to kick us off here with a riddle. Now,
Yes.
I'm very pleased to hear that, because we love a riddle, and we love a pattern that kind of develops over the podcast. So please, Perry, what is this riddle that you'd like to kick us off with?
Oh, thank you so much. So the riddle is 4 is a Mathic number, okay? So I'm going to give you a sequence of numbers, and you try to figure out what is the pattern, what's happening with this sequence of numbers. So 11 is 6, 6 is 3, 3 is 5, 5 is 4, and 4 is a Mathic number. I'm going to try another one. 17 is 9, 9 is 4, and 4 is a Mathic number. The answer will be given at the end of the podcast.
Stay tuned, watch this space, but also be thinking throughout this conversation, next 25 minutes or so, about that riddle. For those who think that they may struggle, don't worry. It took me a long time. In fact, I might actually not even have got the answer before Perry told me the first time. So don't worry if you don't get it, because I didn't even manage to either. But thank you, Perry.
When I first heard it.
Exactly. Well, maybe that's the trick. Okay, so that's given us a good thing to think about before we kick right off here, Perry. So we often start with a question along the lines of what kind of student were you? But we've decided to turn our attention more towards an area that comes up as part of the qualified tutor courses that we run, looking at creating a culture of learning and looking at why we tutor and what our objectives are. So we'd like to start today's podcast, Perry, with the question of what is your why as a tutor?
Oh, that's a great question. So my why as a tutor is I strongly believe that education is the most powerful way to enact change, positive change in the world. And that's what I strongly believe. And every kid, and I told my students this when I was teaching, and I still teach my kids I tutor now this, is that every student, every person is a genius at something. Not everyone is lucky enough to figure out what it is. And that question you had earlier about how were you a student? As a student, I was not seen. My gifts weren't seen. I didn't see my own gifts. So I want to, as a tutor and as a teacher, as an educator, I want to make sure that kids see their own gifts and have ways to see their own gifts and make those gifts in an impactful, positive way to the world.
I love that phrase. Every person is a genius at something. Is that something then that you've kind of weaved into your tutoring philosophy? Is that something that you work on with your students? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, tutoring gives you the great opportunity to actually have more specialized teaching and cater to a student's interest. So like for a kid that has in STEAM or STEM, as you would call it in the UK, I will go in that, and sometimes students are big into Marvel movies. So I use that to do reading comprehension and writing composition. So it's really about trying to tailor your lessons to what that student is interested in, so that the student can actually realize their own gifts and actually feel powered in them. And then when they feel powered in one gift and more confident in one area, they actually feel more confident to try other things. And you never know what other things that they'll try and succeed in that will affect the world positively.
Mm-hmm. Just like adults then as well, really. I think we work in a similar way, don't we? You succeed in one thing and then you try the next. But no, absolutely. I think that's a really amazing way of looking at how we inspire students is by getting them to show their skills in one thing or develop their skills in one area and then using that to build onto the next area and the next area. It's certainly far better than another way around, which is moving on far too fast or pushing on without them letting them understand a particular topic or a particular area or a particular skill. So yeah, absolutely. Now, we mentioned before these set of wonderful maths-based games that are helping students to tease out maths problems and questions under the banner of Mathic Games. Now, could you tell us, Perry, a little bit more about these two slightly different games that you've created?
Sure, we're glad to. So the games are based on games I used to play as a kid, and I also then later played when I was a teacher and a tutor, realizing that these are really fun games to play. But when I was playing them with my students, it wasn't as mathy as I wanted it to be. I was playing with a regular deck of cards with king, queen, jack, and trying to make a king into some other number was too complicated for students. So I was like, how can I make this game more mathy? So I thought on it, and then I thought about the game Mathic Number, the card game of arithmetic, which is an educational card game made to help parents, teachers, and tutors build math competency in the students by teaching and reinforcing common core arithmetic facts and operations and concepts. So it's a game where there's 6 types of cards. There's a basic cards from 0 to 12. I was very important to put the number 0 in there because as a math educator, you know how important it is to have students understand the value and the impact of the number 0. So we have the number 0 to 12 and all the suits that you would expect: clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds. And then you have the more special cards, as I would call them. The special cards are a rounding card, which rounds to whatever number's on there, a greater than or less than cards, greater than, less than, or equal to cards, multiple cards. And the multiple cards, for example, are like there's a card, multiple of 3 card. And this card can be any number that's divisible by 3, from 3 to 6 to 9 to 3 million. And then there are the fraction cards. And the fraction cards can be either the fraction shown or the actual number. So, for example, there's a card with 10 clubs, and half of the clubs are empty. So that card represents half or 5.
Yeah.
So it's a way for them to not only to touch on to rounding, greater than, less than, all these kind of equations, all these type of operations are in that one game. And not only is that game can be something you can play, but teachers can actually use it as a resource deck and use these cards to teach certain lessons. When I taught third grade or year 3 in the UK, rounding was also very difficult for students to understand. But this cards actually help it so that they can understand what a rounding card is by just seeing it as a physical card. And that this card can be, for example, a rounds to 80 card can be any number from 75 to 84. And then there's another game. Once I was making that game, it was hard to kind of put all the operations that are in elementary school math in a one card game. So I had to overflow. I made it into another game called Mathic Fraction, which is a card game of fractions, which is the same thing as teaching the fraction values. And it has 0 to 0, instead of 0 to 12, it's 0 twelfths to 12 twelfths. And then there's also special cards. There's greater than less than fractions. There's simplest fractions. And it's also even or odd numerator cards, where the numerator can be even or odd, and the denominator is either a 2 or 3 or 6 or 12 or 4. And also there's totally wild cards, which are the top and the bottom are both can be either odd or even based on what's shown in the card. And these games are just made to just kind of make equations and explore math. And it's fun seeing people and seeing players try to struggle to see what kind of equations they can make with certain cards in front of them. And it really is a really real way for them to make these equations and really use these operations.
Yeah, it's wonderful hearing an explanation of the game, because Perry and I played this game recently. Perry took me through kind of the basic rules of the game, and really they're not complicated to understand, how to play these games. I was shocked, and I hope none of the students that I tutor maths to are listening to this, but I was shocked at my own, the hesitancy and lack of speed, really, that I'm able to kind of conduct quick arithmetic or even fractions-based kind of equations. But both of the games really do force you to think very much on your feet. And I think we're going to go into this in a little bit just now, but there's a real sense of the games forcing you as the player to come up with the answer and to talk through the answer yourself, which is so much more than often students are asked to do in math. They're often asked, perhaps in a classroom, if they've got the right answer, and they don't have to actually talk their way or explain the processes that they've been through.
To join the growing number of qualified tutors, enroll now for the Level 3 qualification for tutors. This 8-week online facilitated course covers the roles and responsibilities involved in teaching and learning, with a particular focus on inclusion, assessment, and feedback. Upon completion, you'll be awarded a Level 3 in Education and Training from Ofqual recognised training provider Highfield Qualifications. You will also gain a Qualified Tutor Quality Mark, the independent quality mark for tutors. Whatever your starting point, a qualification for tutors has to be the next step. Enroll today at qualifiedtutor.org/training.
That's a very good basic explanation of the rules of the game. Of course, in the show notes below, you'll be able to find links to the games. And as Perry was telling me recently, that the games are very much meant to be physical games as well as online games. So the actual board game, much like a Monopoly or a Cluedo board, will be available in physical pieces in their physical box in very, very shortly. But Perry, what further than the rules of the game, what purpose do these games serve?
Okay, well, that's a great question, right? Because I'm not sure. I mean, I imagine in the UK, there's also kind of a transformation of math, hopefully, kind of moving away from how we were taught as kids, where it's just kind of compute, insert, plug it in and compute, find the answer, everything, just put it on top of each other and compute it. And we're learning now a more useful style of math in which you are taught to be flexible, taught to use different tools, taught to kind of be more flexible with how you actually solve problems. And this is hard because when I was teaching, my parents didn't know how to do these things, and parents would teach the students the old method, and the students are struggling to learn the new method. So we have this whole clash of generations. And I really believe that there's a trinity when it comes to education. There's the parents, there's the educators, and then there's the students. And all three of them need to be in alignment. and to have the best possible outcome. And without the students and the parents knowing the same kind of math and having the same math knowledge, it's really impossible for them to really excel. So this is why I make the game, because I struggle with this so much as a teacher, to actually make it so that students and parents and teachers in general, can play this game with the students, learn with them in a fun way. Like, this is like something you could do in game night. It's not just something that's homework. My students, when they're playing, this is the most fun part of their game, of our sessions, because people love games, people love winning, people love gamifying things, and gamifying is why I did gamify this game, because it's so useful. So the purpose is to bridge that gap. And it's not going to only take a card game. It's going to take also a virtual version for virtual tutors. Also, we're working on a workbook, stuff like that. It needs to be just like a whole really intensive focus on making sure that parents and educators and students are on the same page. Because math is so important, especially in this new technology future that we have now. It's so important that students understand math and are able to think logically, think critically, and think outside the box in working with math.
Yeah, I think that those are such key skills, aren't they? Being able to think outside the box, being able to differentiate yourself from kind of the rest of the students, or kind of the standard way of thinking, showing that kind of academic or that kind of intellectual spark is really very valued, not just in the classroom, but kind of in the workplace as well, isn't it? But let's dive a little bit deeper into what you were saying just there about bridging the gap and about the kind of these different styles of maths. Why is it important that we bridge this gap, as you say?
Well, it's important, for one, was education, to make sure we're raising the most educated generation that we can, because we have big problems that we need to solve. And this is why when I was teaching, I taught, there wasn't a STEAM or a STEM class, after school class at my school. So I started one, because I know how important science, technology, engineering, arts, and math is, because it's not only about creating things and making money and, going to the Mars or something like that. It's really, to me, STEM and STEAM is about problem solving. It starts with empathy. So what is someone's problems? What are problems we're facing? What are problems the world is facing? And how can my skills help to alleviate those problems? And that's why I see that this is so important to bridge this gap and have people understand how math works. I read a book that's talking about how math is really the science of not ever being wrong. It's kind of the science of knowing what you're doing, because math is something that gives you that kind of objectivity, that this is a way to do things. So I feel like the more empowered, the more educated our generation is, the more we're going to be able to solve these big problems that we're being all faced with.
Okay, there we go. There's the message. Then there's the inspiring message for the next generation is maths and science is the way that we're going to be helping to solve the kind of the issues that we face.
Empathy, No,
precisely.
Totally.
I think just for anyone who's unsure what STEM or STEAM is, STEAM is science, technology, engineering, the arts, and maths. And in the UK, we just have STEM without the arts. It seems weird almost to me that you include science, technology, engineering, and maths with the arts, but I love it. But no, it's clearly a crucial part of why you've designed the games. And I think that comes through very much in the playing of the game and in the understanding of the game. Even just kind of comparatively the kind of short gameplay that we did carried out recently. But I imagine over many sessions of this game, you start to develop kind of your own understanding of it and your own the own lesson, the lessons that you yourself take from it. And I do really see that those two working in harmony, playing the game and teaching parents and teachers of, who were students themselves before many years ago, how the current generation are learning.
And I do want to say one thing about the arts is that, for one, my mom's an art teacher, so if I don't put it in there, she'll be mad at me when she hears this. Of course, she's inspired me a lot. And also, humans, we are emotional. We think that we're rational. We think that our decisions are made off of logic and ration, but really it's a lot of emotion, how we see things, how we perceive things, how things hit us, how they make us feel, really affects how we interact with things. So without art, all those science and technology, engineering can't be used by humans in the way that it needs to be, because it won't be accepted by them. It needs that art, it needs that emotional effect to really make a deep connection.
Mm. Well, as a former art student myself, Perry, I'm very glad to hear that.
I love it.
You're giving validation to the whole field of arts there.
This summer, join us for the first ever Love Tutoring Festival, a celebration of tutoring in all its aspects. We invite you to bring all your experience and expertise to make this event the most exciting event to ever happen in the world of tutoring.
The festival, running from Monday the 28th of June to Friday the 2nd of July, is a rich and varied programme of free events, keynote presentations, workshops, live podcasts, and practical demonstrations spread out over a whole week. And don't worry, everything will be recorded. So as long as you're enrolled, we'll give you access to any of the events that you miss later on. We're also offering a limited number of tickets for our famous CPD accredited workshops. If you purchase a ticket to any or all of these practical and engaging workshops, you'll also receive a certificate of completion after the event.
To register for the free pass and to grab your CPD tickets, go to qualifiedtutor.org/Love Tutoring Festival.
Let's turn slightly towards tutors themselves, and not just kind of playing these games, but actually, for example, for a tutor, listening to this today, how can they make use of this? So, how can a tutor weave this into their tutoring sessions? How can a tutor make use of these maths-based resources?
Well, I mean, I made this game with educators in mind. So there's many different ways that students, educators can use this in their tutoring sessions. For one, it's a virtual game because we're in a virtual time. All you have to, just on the website, you can find access to the virtual edition of the game. And also, the game is very adaptable. So as I said earlier, how there's 6 different types of cards in the game. So if you're playing with a kindergarten student, you would only play with the basic cards, like 0 to 12. And you'll just be adding, subtracting, and stuff like that. And then as you get older in the first grade, second grade, you kind of would add in cards. So this game is adaptable to each student, to what they're studying at the time. So if you want to do rounding with your student, you put the rounding cards in. If you want to put, grade and lesson comparing with them, you put those cards in. And that's something that I really want. And also the same thing with Mathic Fraction. And all the card games are like this, where they can be adapted to these students and to the situation that you're having. And and also be encouraged adaptation. I mean, so my students, when I was playing with them, they will make up different iterations of the game. We made war out of the game. So many different ways that educators can actually play the game, because even in the rulebook, we encourage adaptation. We encourage you to adapt this game to your own needs. And if you do that, please let me know. Please send an email to us and let us know how you're adapting it, because we love to hear how people are adapting it to their students. And yeah, I mean, I think that's really important. And of course, we're also working on this is a resource deck as well. So not only is this a game to play, but people can use this as a resource deck. And in also the deck of cards that when you purchase a game, there's also 10 operation cards. And the operation cards are just that. They have one operation on one side, one operation on the other side. So you can use those as kind of manipulatives during a gameplay. And And it really, I really want to say that the ways you could adapt this to our own teaching style and students is infinite. And it's just like about, so many different tools are made for teachers, and this is another one of them.
And I think what's really important there was the discussion there about what you were saying about using this with kindergarten kids, because it's almost, well, I find it's often the more basic, the younger students with the more basic maths calculations, where resources are sometimes harder. There's so many wonderful resources now, manipulatives for higher stages of maths, but sometimes it's just the basic, here's a number, how do we get to this number using one other number? For example, we've got 12 and we add some number, how do we get to, 32, for example?
Yeah.
And it's that kind of very basic building. Not that you have 20 on any of your card. That was a bad example, but it's that kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. Maybe we need to use some other operation there. My brain's not working for that.
Also with this game set is I believe I didn't put the card numbers. The numbers for each card is not on there. So because of course we know supertization is a very important skill for students to have, to be able to see a pattern of shapes and be able to know what number it is. So we use that pattern, and for the kindergarten students, that pattern is built upon from the 0 card to the 12th card, so that students aren't fed, this is number 1, this is number 2. They just have to look at the pattern themselves and supertize. And the supertization is actually something that's very helpful for students to really learn in those kindergarten and first grade times.
Okay, so this is a game that's going to stay with a child right the way through childhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, into their teenage years, take it to college with them. Yeah.
We'll go to that later.
Okay. Well, no, it's a great place to go into. So, but what is, you've described the game, you've described how it can be used, you've described how tutors can use it, you've described what the purpose of these games are on a deeper meaning rather than just playing a game. But where can this go, Perry? What's next for Mathic Games?
I'm glad you asked. So a lot is next for it. We are rolling out the some new games because of the overflow and just of all the domains. Really, our goal is to have Mathic Games represent all of the kindergarten to 4th grade math domains. And so we are working on Mathic Time, the same game just based on time, same game based on Mathic Geometry, Mathic Measurement, Mathic Addition and Subtraction Facts, in which instead of having the number 1, we have the card that is 2 minus 1, right? So people can build their addition facts. And then later, multiplication and division facts as well, where instead we have the number 1, we have 1 times 1, right? And Mathic decimals, because my students are now getting older and older and moving to decimals, Mathic percentage. And really, hopefully, I want to move into adapting these to also coding languages, which also are the future, and also have operators like less than, greater than, like that, and they're equal to in there. So, Mathic JavaScript may come soon too. Who knows?
Mathic Python. Okay.
Mathic Python, Mathic C. All of them are the same kind of are languages and the ways of communicating values and what's So I think all of it could fit in. Also, I am working with some very talented one of my colleagues to make a workbook that's focused on this game, on these cards. I will make a workbook based around these cards because not only, as I said earlier, not only can you play this game, but as a resource deck, educators can use this game. For example, there's a card that's less than 10, and the card can be any number less than 10. So you can have your students say, between the less than 10 card and the greater than 1 card, which one can make the most numbers? Which one is more powerful? Which one would you rather have in your hand? And there's cards in the game that are super powerful. There's a card there that's greater than 1, right? That's a very powerful card. There's a card less than 1,000. So there's so many different activities you can do with the cards. And not only do I want to do activities based on Mathic number and Mathic games, but also just in general all the kind of activities I did with my students when I was teaching, like stock picking, which is always fun for students. And a crazy weird way is that students also enjoyed doing taxes. I had the students calculate their taxes after I paid them or whatever. And this is a good activity. So activities like that, because I think it's so important that math and everything is not taught in a vacuum. Because we don't live in a vacuum, but we're taught in a vacuum. John did this and had this many apples. Who's John? And who cares about these apples? And we want to have things applied. So I want to try to make things apply to people's life, which is helpful to help them learn, but also prepares them for life. I'm not sure about in the UK, but in America, we're not taught how to balance a checkbook, how to write a check, how taxes, like real life things that are incur math that are interesting to students aren't really taught. So those kind of things will be put into the Mathic workbook. And also we're working on making a fully dedicated website, which will be able to more easily play Mathic number, Mathic games with your students.
Okay, wow. So there's quite a lot.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah, it appears to be. Yeah, well, it does strike me that there's seemingly kind of never-ending possibilities for where these kind of games can go. I mean, maths is being gamified at probably at a greater rate, amongst educators across the world than it ever has before. And obviously, students of any age will always love games. So it doesn't appear to me that it needs to stop at basic operations or anything like that. So there's a little bit for our listeners to incentivize them to continue the journey with Mathic Games and with you, Perry, and working with you kind of, I feel like there are many other types of educators that you will end up working with, Perry, because there's so much to come from these kind of resources.
I'm honored to work with all the educators out there around the world. You're all nation builders.
There's another inspirational message that Perry's left me. That's at least 4 that he's left us with. So listen up here. But you can contact Perry. You can find Perry at mathicnumber@gmail.com, or of course you can always log on to and find more information about the game, including how to purchase it when it's eventually goes on sale at mathicnumbercardgame.com. Which will be in the show notes below, of course. But Perry, thank you so much for joining us. That's around 25-30 minutes of really, really important and informative stuff about this area that before a couple of weeks ago, Perry, I knew nothing about, and now I feel like I know a great deal. So
thank you so much.
That's the challenge for our listeners. But I hope you enjoyed coming on to explain it and to talk.
So speaking of challenges, it's time to end with our riddle.
Of course.
So I'll repeat the riddle. We start at the top of the show. So 4 is a Mathic number. Why is 4 the Mathic number? What is happening with the sequence of numbers? 11 is 6. 6 is 3. 3 is 5. 5 is 4. And 4 is a Mathic number. The other sequence is 17 is 9. 9 is 4. And 4 is a Mathic number. Okay, are you ready for the answer, Ludo?
Drum roll, please.
Okay, so the way you solve this is by thinking outside the box, and not thinking about these as numbers, but thinking about the letters of each of the numbers. So we think of a number 11. 11 has 6 letters. 6 has 3 letters. 3 has 5 letters. 5 has 4 letters, and 4 is a Mathic number. And then we'll do it again with the other sequence we have. 17 has 9 numbers. 9 has 4 numbers. So every number, whether you go for the millions, billions, any number you do, will always come back to the number 4 because of the nature of the English language. And go a little bit deeper, because 4 is the only number in the English language that is itself, right? So the lesson all along with this is be yourself like the number 4.
Title of the podcast, maybe.
Yeah.
I'd love to know if they've tried that with 240,972,380.
We're in the second part of this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Someone somewhere will take on the mantle of working that out for the biggest numbers out there. I'm sure it's right.
Unless they're out there, that's your challenge.
That's the challenge. Yeah, exactly. If you already knew what the riddle was before Perry had barely started, then it's your turn to take the challenge one step further. Thank you, Perry, for ending on that. You've taught a lot of people a lot of things today, and you've also given their own party trick as well. So yes. Thank you very much, Perry. And we'd love to have you back on the podcast when the game has developed a little bit further. And of course, we may well be seeing you at the Love Tutoring Festival that's taking place later on this year at the end of June. So awesome. Catch Perry there. Catch a great deal of other international tutors from, as the word suggests, from all over the world, from the US, from Canada, from the UK, of course. But once again, Perry, a huge thanks for coming on, and we'll catch up pretty soon.
And thank you for having me on, and thank you for everything you're doing as a qualified tutor to elevate the view and the practice of being a tutor, because it's such important work. And I benefit from tutors when I was a struggling student. So I appreciate all that you do out there.
That's what we want to. It's the message we want to spread, isn't it? That the best tutors will create the best educators for later on in life.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, Perry. Cheerio then.
Such a pleasure.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Qualified Tutor podcast, where tutors share their expertise to support the tutoring community. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join our Qualified Tutor community at www.qualifiedtutorcommunity.org or find it in the show notes below. We exist to connect, share, and learn with you because tutoring is a small job that makes a big difference.